Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of CNF Talks. I'm delighted to have with me today Avivah Wittenberg-Cox, who's the CEO of 21st. And Avivah's going to be speaking at our upcoming summit on women in finance in central London on the 10th of July. Avivah, welcome.
Thank you so much, Maurice. Lovely to be back with you once again.
Very good to have you with us again. Turning to our first question, what are the implications of and opportunities arising from global demographic shifts, and how will they impact both markets and talent in the UK and beyond?
Okay, that's a very large question. It will be huge. It is huge. I think it's a vastly underestimated topic. I think it's up there with climate change and AI and tech revolution. The third big shift on our 21st century agenda is the longevity revolution. So our world is turning for the first time in human history from a demographics of pyramids, where we've been used to populations with just a few old people and lots of young people, to, for the first time, populations of squares, where there's a generational equivalence or balance between the old and the young, which also means there's a huge number more old coming. We're coming on to the 2nd billion of people over 60 by year 2050, and a shrinking of the young. And fertility rates are tumbling. There are no more babies. Nobody wants to have babies anymore. This is a big shift. So the implications are vast. Every country, every company, every career, and every couple will be impacted by this era of longevity. And it's time we start getting our individual minds around it, and then our corporate practices and strategies adapted as well. It'll take us a little time even to get it onto the radar of a lot of organizations.
So really a very, very major change in the world as a whole. And I suppose also in terms of organizations and strategies and management, what are the types of management skills that are going to be required to serve life's 4 quarters, as I believe you have put it, and to motivate multi-generational workforces?
Well, yes, my 4-quarter model, which suggests that if we're going to live to be 100, that divvies up nicely to 25 years per quarter, where the first quarter is kind of grow, the second is achieve, the third, if you're optimistic, is become, where Q3, as I call it, is the really new piece in our longer life that we have to welcome and embrace, and Q4 is the new older old age, which I call harvesting. And the challenge, I think, is our world, and particularly our working world, our corporate world, is completely designed for Q2, the years from 25 to 50. We've done everything, all the systems, all of the financing, all the pensions, all the career trajectories, all our deep dives into consumer behaviors and preferences are very much focused on Q2. And suddenly we have this 30-year extension of life, which really means we have this new Q3 part of life. We don't really know enough about it. We are the first generation to experience it in a new, healthy, working, engaged sort of way. And so companies will want to quickly understand the ramifications, stop getting rid of people post 50, because they can't rely on the young people we're no longer making to fill their workforces. We have millions of people in our labor force that are disappearing. So we're going to have to use the people we have, who are going to be the Q3ers, who in the past have been stereotyped, underestimated, largely ignored, certainly not developed, invested in, and promoted along with their younger peers. And I think the same is true, that's on the talent side, and exactly the same is true on the consumer side. We're still uber youth-addled, youth-focused, thinking our future depends on getting in those new young clients and consumers. increasingly our future is, will we be able to retain and attract Q3ers who have most of
mm,
the purchasing power and most of the affluence in the world today?
mm,
Ignore them at your peril and miscommunicate with them at your peril, because we're not very good for the moment
mm,
at connecting with older people. We don't even know what to call them. You have heard all these awful terms of the silver, the senior, the gray.
mm, mm.
We don't want to be any of those things. We want to be
Yeah.
a whole new phenomenon.
Mm. So that represents a major cultural shift, doesn't it? Because and that our current culture, perhaps with the focus on younger workers for the sake of technology coming in, for the sake of costs and so on. How do you think that AI is going to play along with that idea of people being productive? I think your Q3 was up to 74 years old, wasn't it?
Yep.
Do you think that AI is going to help in terms of that perception and the usefulness of people in Q3?
I think yes, potentially, of course. I think AI is an
Mm,
enormous potential enabler, well, of everyone, but particularly since, tech is changing. I started out life as a programmer and I had to learn how to
mm,
program, right? But the future of technology is actually learning how to prompt AI, how to ask good questions, how to train
mm,
technology to help us solve the world's
mm,
big challenges. And I think while the young, are great at a certain kind of fast, fluid intelligence, most of the research indicates that the old are good at connecting unusual data sets, bringing people and ideas together in new and
mm.
unusual ways, and just having more life experience, which can help in how do you
Yeah.
prepare for unprecedented futures, which I think is where we're
Mm,
headed. And so I think the
mm,
combination of fresh new blood with old ideas, experience, and hopefully for some among us, not all of us,
mm,
a degree of wisdom is going to be a
mm,
really powerful intergenerational motor to
mm,
solve things. And I think AI will be uh, a fantastic accelerator of building on the experience we've collected.
mm.
And it may completely reshape, of course, who's employed, what are we employed at, and do we actually need to be employed anymore? Those are still some
Well,
open questions.
quite. Yeah. Those are further questions, aren't they? But looking at it from a company's point of view, what are really the key success factors in combining longevity and growth strategies?
So I think the key right now is one, to make sure this is on the leadership agenda, to
Mm,
evaluate how big an impact it will have on your business, your sector, and your workforce. Most companies I walk into haven't really even measured what percentage of their employees are over 50 or 10 years
mm,
from retirement. What knowledge
mm,
do they have that may be walking out the door that we may actually need to build on?
mm,
What's the age range of our consumers, and are we over focusing on the young to the detriment
mm,
of actually being able to anticipate and innovate with our older consumers? I think those are the things that companies will want to be looking at. And if they've not done the homework and put almost everything they're doing through a longevity through a longevity lens, they're not
mm.
going to be future ready for the world that we're heading into.
Yeah, yeah. And I suppose that there are various things which can help. The World Economic Forum's new longevity economy principles. So how are those going to play out in relation to men and women surviving in the age of the longevity economy? How useful are those principles?
Well, I think it's a really wonderful, I mean, increasingly, we just need to have some guidelines on
Mm,
what do we have to address and what are the priorities. And I think when the World Economic Forum works really hard and puts out a good proposition on what the principles might be, and they're not a big surprise, right? They've been swimming around the ecosphere for a while,
yeah.
lifelong learning, financial resilience, health. We have to change our health systems from sick systems
Mm,
to preventive systems. There's a lot of work in adapting countries and companies.
mm,
And I think for on the gender topic, I think it's very interesting, right? Women have often had to juggle an almost impossible dual load in Q2 in those years before 50. Most women have ticked those boxes and done that by 50. And so their Q3 opens up to a potential career phase that I think can be some of their best decades in their professional lives, if companies allow them to accelerate and have maximum impact later than we're used to. We're used to people peaking in Q2. What happens if we allow women to peak at a different time? And then what will we see? And I think it can be a whole new paradigm where we see dual career couples re-engage across these much longer lives and careers in a more collaborative rather than a rather competitive way, both at home and at work, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe AI can facilitate that idea of the sort of multi-career lifetime that people will have. So really fascinating, I have to say, Avivah. I could talk to you for a very, very long time, but sadly our time is up. But sadly our time is up. So I hope that our viewers will be able to join us in person at the Women in Finance Summit, which is being held in central London on the 10th of July. And Avivah, I very much look forward to seeing you there.
Très bientôt, Maurice. See you all there, I hope.
See you there. Thank you.